Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yatkripatamaham bande paramanandamadhavam paramanandamadhavam. We will now do Gita Dhyanam. So please go ahead and make sure you have that with you. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Krathitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamrita Varshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Amba Tvamanusandathami Bhagavad-gite Bhavadveshini Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullaravindayatapatra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikapanaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gitamritaduhe Namaha Sarvopanishado Gavaha Dogdha Gopalanandanaha Partho Vatsasudhir Bhokta Tuktam Gitamritam Mahat Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru Bhishma Drona Tatha Jayadratha Jala Gandhara Nilotpala Shalyagrahavati Kripena Vahani Karnena Velakula Ashwathama Vikarna Ghora Makara दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी कैवर्तकः केशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटम् नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम् लोके सज्जन षट्पदैरहरः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयात् भारत पङ्कजं कलिमल प्रध्वंसि न श्रेयसे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्कपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः. All right, let us see the verses we covered last week. We are from verse number 12 to verse number 20. We will chant. Tasya sanjanayan harsham कुरुवृद्धः पितामहः सिंहनादं विनद्योच्चैः शङ्खं दध्मौ प्रतापवान् ततः शङ्काश्च भैर्यश्च पणवानकगोमुखाः सहसैवाभ्यहन्यन्त सशब्दस्तुमुलोऽभवत् ततः श्वेतैर्हयैर्युक्ते महति स्यन्दने स्थितौ माधवः पाण्डवश्चैव दिव्यौ शङ्खौ प्रदध्मतुः पाञ्चजन्यं ऋषिकेशः देवदत्तं धनञ्जयः पौण्ड्रं दध्मौ महाशङ्खं भीमकर्मावृकोदरः अनन्तविजयं राजा कुन्तीपुत्रो युधिष्ठिरः नकुलः सह देवश्च सुघोषमणिपुष्पकौ काश्यश्च परमेश्वासः शिखण्डी च महारथः दृष्टद्युम्नो विराटश्च सात्यकीश्चापराजितः द्रुपदो द्रौपदेयाश्च सर्वशः पृथिवीपते सौभद्रश्च महाबाहुः शङ्खान् दद्मुः पृथक् पृथक् सघोषोधार्तराष्ट्राणां हृदयानि व्यदारयत् नभश्च पृथिवीं चैव तुमुलो व्यनुनादयन् अथ व्यवस्थितान् दृष्ट्वा धार्तराष्ट्रान् कपिध्वजः प्रवृत्ते शस्त्रसम्पाते धनुरुद्यम्य पाण्डवः ऋषिकेशं तदा वाक्यम् इदमाह महीपते. Okay, so last week we covered those verses 13 to 20, first part of 21. What happened last week? Last week, we now looked at the Pandava Paksha. We looked at what are the Pandavas doing, because remember, Duryodhana was so afraid and his morale was really down. And so Bhishma blew his conch and he let out a lion's roar and he started the war. And so now we switched over to the Pandava side and we saw Grand Arjuna and Bhagavan Krishna coming in their divine chariot with their divine conscious, divine weapons. Everything about them is divine. And we saw that in each of the Pandavas, they had their special conscious. They even make a mention here. And it was all in unison. When they were first they were blowing the conscious one by one, and that all that compounded sound together, what it did was it shattered the Kauravas. It was so strong. It made the earth, it made the heavens just reverberate. And so the hearts of the Kauravas were just shattered. So it's like, you know, the Kauravas thought their battle cry was so loud, but wait till you got to the Pandavas. It was extremely loud. And so now Arjuna is all in the mood. You know, he's all in the mood. And he looks at Bhagavan Krishna. He looks at Bhagavan Krishna. And to Bhagavan Krishna, he gives him some instructions. So what instruction does he give Bhagavan Krishna? That we will see today, verse 21 and 22. Arjuna uvacha.
Arjuna uvacha.
Senayorubhayor madhye.
Senayorubhayor madhye.
Ratham sthapaya mechuta.
Ratham sthapaya mechuta.
Yavadeta niriksheham.
Yavadeta niriksheham.
Yodukamanavasthitan.
Yodukamanavasthitan.
Kairmaya sahayodhavyam.
Kairmaya sahayodhavyam.
Asmin ranasamudyame.
Asmin ranasamudyame.
Arjuna uvacha. Senayorubhayor madhye. Ratham sthapaya mechuta. Yavadeta niriksheham. Yodukamanavasthitan. Kairmaya sahayodhavyam. Asmin ranasamudyame. So Arjuna tells Lord Krishna, and the name for Lord Krishna here is Achyuta. Okay, so he says Achyuta. Achyuta means the one who never falls. Chuti means fall. Achyuta, the one who never falls. And this is very significant that this is the name of Lord Krishna used here because Arjuna is going to fall. He's going to fall. So Vedavyasa is trying to tell us Arjuna is going to fall, but don't worry, he won't fall so deep because he's with Achyuta, the one who never falls. And as long as we're with Achyuta, then how low can we fall, right? Gurudev always says, when a devotee falls, it's just from the head to the lap of God. That's all. It's never out of God because you're the devotee of God. So if you're falling, you're only falling from here to here. You cannot fall out of God. Not for any devotee. So Achyuta, he says Achyuta. Senayoho ubhayoho madhye. Senayoho, these soldiers of these armies, ubhayoho madhye, in between these armies, ratham sthapaya, place my chariot in between these two armies. So like Arjuna is giving Lord Krishna a command. And he says, Yavat etan nirikshe aham yodu kaman avasthitan. He says, Yavat, while nirikshe, while I see, aham nirikshe, while I see, what do I see? Etan, this, yodu kaman, those were desirous of fighting. While I look at all of those who are desirous of fighting, avasthitan, who are positioned here, who stand over here. Let me see, position my chariot so I can see everyone who I'm fighting with. And he says, Kairmaya sahayodhavyam. He says, by who am I to fight with over here? Asmin rana samudyame. Asmin, in this rana, in this battle, Rana Samudyame, in this eve of battle, let me know whom I must fight. I want to see who I'm going to stand up against. So in other words, Arjuna was preparing to see his field. We saw that he had his bow and he's holding it up and he's ready to go. The battle cries came and he tells Lord Krishna, I want to see my field. I want to see who I'm going to fight with. I can't fight with any ordinary foot soldier. Show me who I'm going to fight with. And he's so he's so confident. He says, who is it going to be? Further, he tells Lord Krishna in verse number 23, Yotsyamanavekshyeham
Yotsyamanavekshyeham
ya etetra samagataha
ya etetra samagataha
dhartarashtrasya durbuddhehe
dhartarashtrasya durbuddhehe
युद्धे प्रियचिकीर्षवः
युद्धे प्रियचिकीर्षवः
योत्स्यमानानवेक्षेऽहं य एतेऽत्र समागताः धार्तराष्ट्रस्य दुर्बुद्धेः युद्धे प्रियचिकीर्षवः. So he tells Lord Krishna, he says, O Lord Krishna, Dhartarashtrasya durbuddhehe means those durbuddhi, means that Duryodhana, that son of Dhritarashtra. His durbuddhi means his intellect is wicked. Of that who is wicked, of that evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra, of him, Yuddhe, who are in this war, Priyachikirshabaha, who are desiring to please him. I want to see those who are desiring to please this Duryodhana, this evil-minded Duryodhana. I want to see who wants to please him in this war. And he says, Yotsyamanaan aveksheham eta atra samagataha. So I want to see those who are fighting, those who are assembled, samagataha, those who are assembled, yotsyamanana, those who are assembled with the object of fighting. Here, I want to see all of these people. So he comes, he says, who am I going to fight with? And I want to see who is that who sided with Duryodhana? Who is that that crooked-minded Duryodhana who went to his side and who's desirous of fighting? Because this indicates that they didn't really want war. They tried to avoid war at all costs. I want to see those who still want war, those who are still making us fight. Who are those people? Oh Lord Krishna, show them to me. So Arjuna comes with this attitude, ready to go, ready to roll. And then what does Lord Krishna do? Let's see what Lord Krishna does in verse 24. Sanjaya uvacha
Sanjaya uvacha
eva mukto rishikeshaha
eva mukto rishikeshaha
Gudakeshena bharata
Gudakeshena bharata
Senayorubhayormadhye
Senayorubhayormadhye
Thapayitva rathotamam
Sthapayitva rathottamam
Sanjaya uvacha eva mukto rishikeshaha Gudakeshena bharata Senayorubhayormadhye Sthapayitva rathotamam. We'll read 24 also. Bhishma Drona Pramukhataha
Bhishma Drona Pramukhataha
Sarvesham cha mahikshitaam.
सर्वेषां च महीक्षिताम्
Uvacha partha pashyaitan.
उवाच पार्थ पश्यैतान्
Samavetan kuruniti.
समवेतान् कुरूनिति
Bhishma drona pramukataha. Sarvesham cha mahikshitaam. Uvacha partha pashyaitan. Samavetan kuruniti. So here he says, okay, I want to see who's assembled here to fight, who's pleasing the son of Dhritarashtra. And Sanjaya says, this is what Lord Krishna does. Eva muktaha. In this way, Gudakeshena. Why Arjuna? When Arjuna said this to Rishikesha, when Arjuna said this to Lord Krishna, O Bharata, O Dhritarashtra, then Senayor Ubhayor Madhye Stapayatva Rathotamam. Then what Lord Krishna did is Stapayatva, having stationed Ratha. Rathotamam means the best of the chariots. Having stationed the best of the chariots, Senayoho Ubhayoho Madhye, in between the two armies. And where did he station it? Bhishma Drona Pramukataha. Pramukataha means right in front of Bhishma and Drona. Right in front of Bhishma and Drona, he puts the chariot. Sarvesham cha bahikshitam means in front of all of these rulers of earth, he puts the chariot. And Uvacha, and Lord Krishna says these words. Now, these are the only words that Lord Krishna will say in chapter 1. He says, Partha, Pashya, Pashya, see, Etan Samavetan, see all those who are gathered here. Samavetan, those who are gathered here. Who are they? Kurun. They are the Kurus, the Kauravas. That's all Lord Krishna says. So, Lord Krishna is commanded and he executes, and skillfully he places the chariot in front of Bhishma and Drona. Now, here, the word Gudakesha means Gudaka Isha, the one who has conquered sleep. This is one of the names of Arjuna. The one who has conquered sleep means he's conquered tamas. So he's conquered tamas and now he's ready to fight, supposedly ready to fight, right? Because once one has conquered tamas, then they are now in the realm of rajas. So Gudakesha, you're here. Lord Krishna places it right where it hurts. You know, sometimes we wonder why we are placed in the situation we are placed in, why we are in front of the people we are with, why we are in the place, in the time, in the situation, in the circumstance we're in. It's because that's exactly where we need to evolve. That's exactly where we need to grow. So wherever we are placed, that's where we need to grow. And sometimes it can be very painful, as what we will see with Arjuna. Bhagavan places him there because that's what he needs to see. That's what he needs to see to evolve. Just like, when there is pain in our body, that's the part we need to press so that the pain will go away, isn't it? In the same way, we are exposed to our most painful spots only so that we can grow even further. And this was why Lord Krishna had placed that chariot exactly there where Bhishma and Drona were there. Now, what happens to Arjuna? What happens to Arjuna when he sees all of this? So remember now, from verse number 14, so now we are coming to a different section of chapter 1. From verse number 14 to 25 was all a description of the Pandava Paksha. What's going on with the Pandavas? Now, in verse number 26 to 28, we see Arjuna's dilemma. So 26 to 28 is Arjuna's dilemma. Okay? What does he see here? And how does he feel? So we will read verses 26 and 27 and the first of 28. Tatra pashyat stithan parthaha
Tatra pashyat sthitan parthaha
pitranath pitamahan
pitranath pitamahan
acharyan matulan bhratran
acharyan matulan bhratra
putran pautran sakhinstatha
putran pautran sakhimstatha
Tatra pashyat stithan parthaha pitranath pitamahan acharyan matulan bhratran putran pautran sakhinstatha shwashuran suhridaschaiva
Shvashuran suhridaschaiva
senayorubhayorapi
senayorubhayorapi
तान् समीक्ष्य स कौन्तेयः
तान् समीक्षस्य कौन्तेयः
सर्वान् बन्धूनवस्थितान्
सर्वान् बन्धूनवस्थितान्
कृपया परयाविष्टः
कृपया परयाविष्टः
विषीदन्निदमब्रवीत्
विषीदन्निदमब्रवीत्
श्वशुरान् सुहृदश्चैव सेनयोरुभयोरपि तान् समीक्ष्य स कौन्तेयः सर्वान् बन्धूनवस्थितान् कृपया परयाविष्टः विषीदन्निदमब्रवीत्. So Lord Krishna puts Arjuna exactly where it hurts. And what does he see? Tatra, tatra, in that place, apashyat. He sees in that place, stithan, stationed there. Who sees Partha? Partha, Arjuna. Pitrun. Pitrun means people, those who are like his father. Like Bhurishravas. Pitamahan, those who are like his grandfathers. Like Bhishma. Acharyan, those who are his teachers, like Dronacharya, Kripacharya. Matulan, those who are his maternal uncles, like Shalya. Remember Shalya, who got tricked to get into the Kaurava side from the Pandava side? He sees Shalya. And Matulan could also be Shakuni, because that is like their, Duryodhana is like their brother after all. Then Bhratran. Bhratran means the Kauravas, because they're like the brothers of the Pandavas. Putran, the sons of the Kauravas. It's like their sons, their nephews. Pautran, their nephews' sons. So, because they're like the uncles of the Kaurava Paksha. Then Sakhin. Sakhin means their friends, like Ashwathama. Ashwathama was their friend when they were growing up. So he's tatha. He sees all of these people. Shwashuran. Shwashuran means the fathers-in-law. He sees fathers-in-law there. Suhridaha. He sees all well-wishers in the other side. Where does he see? Senayoho ubhayoho api. Right there, when he's placed in between these two armies, he sees this. Tan samiksha. All of them seeing, having seen them, that Kaunteya, Sarvan Bandhun Avasthitan, Saha Kaunteya, that Kunti's son, seeing all of them stationed there, all relatives stationed there, what happens? Kripaya paraya, out of kripa. Kripa means compassion. Kripaya, out of compassion. Paraya means misplaced compassion. Avishtaha means filled with this misplaced compassion. Vishidan, being very sorrowful. Idam abravid, he says this. So this is actually one of the most important parts of the first chapter. The first chapter is called Arjuna Vishada Yoga, means the yoga of Arjuna's grief. So here is where you see what the grief is actually going to be about, because we see this word Vishidan in this verse. That gives us the hint that this is what the chapter is going to be about. What happened to Arjuna? Arjuna went to the field as a warrior, right? As a soldier. He had this whole notion that I'm going to go there and fight because I'm a soldier, I'm a warrior, and this is what I have to do. My dharma is to fight. My dharma is to uphold dharma. He was very, very clear with his role. He was very clear about what he had to do. He had no doubt about it. But when he saw all of these people in front of him, his vision changed. How did his vision change? His role changed. He said, I'm no longer a warrior. I'm no longer a soldier. I'm no longer the champion of dharma. But who am I? I am the son. I am a grandson. I'm a brother. I'm an uncle. How can I do this? You see, his role switched from I'm a warrior to I'm a son, grandson, uncle. How can I do this? And the minute he switched his role to that, his vision is gone. His vision is gone because now he's seeing the war from being an uncle, from being a brother, from being a son. He's seeing the war from a different standpoint. And when we have the lack of vision, what happens is we get deluded. We get deluded. We have this, that's why here it says Samiksha. If you see verse 27, 28, Samiksha. Tan Samiksha means he saw them, but he lost his vision. He saw, but he lost his vision. And therefore what happened? Kripaya paraya vishtaha. Misplaced compassion. He had compassion, but that compassion is misplaced. It doesn't belong in a battlefield right now. And because of that compassion, misplaced compassion, he becomes very sorrowful. So I mistake my role, my identity. Then I have the lack of vision. And because of the lack of vision, I get deluded. I get deluded and I have this misplaced compassion, lack of judgment. And because of that, we suffer. And this Arjuna, what Gurudev calls in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna disease, is not unique to Arjuna. It's something that we see every day. If you think about it, if you think about a judge in the Supreme Court, right? See, the role, many people always ask, which role do we have to play? Which role always gets priority? The priority role is always the bigger role. The role that affects the most people, that's the role that we have to take the standpoint from. So if we take a judge from today whose son is guilty of something, right? And when that judge has to face his or her son, how would that be? Can one actually do justice to that? Right? Your own son has committed a crime and you have to give the sentence to the crime. Can you do it from the position of a judge, or will we lose it and become, I'm the mother or I'm the father? And that is, we think that it's good for that person, but it's misplaced compassion. They'll only get worse. We see sometimes with a teacher. Sometimes teachers teach their own children, and it's time for them to grade papers. But when it comes to their own child, there's like this misplaced compassion. There's like, oh, I don't know, she could be feeling like this or he could be feeling like this. it becomes very difficult to be objective. It could be in the government when there's some kind of deal that they have to work out. They would work it out with their friend, not with who's the best qualified for it. And all of these things we do because we lose sight of it. It's never about the individual. It's never about what we want, what we feel, what we think. It's always about what are we here for? What's the vision for? What is the overall vision? And the minute Arjuna saw this, he lost sight of that. If you remember, in Virat Parva, how Arjuna was so incredibly different, right? He was coming out of his disguise as Brihanala, and Drona was there, Bhishma was there, Duryodhana was there. He fought with them. He had no issues whatsoever. But for some reason here, he loses this lack. He loses this vision. And that's why, sometimes people say if they're doctors, they don't want to operate on their own kith and kin, or they, or lawyers are not in the same case as their kith and kin, because it becomes very difficult to have that objectivity. One has to always keep the vision above their self. And this objectivity, Arjuna loses. And he's unable to deal with it. And so what Arjuna goes through, now we will see, is almost like a panic attack or an anxiety attack. He breaks down. He breaks down and he tells Lord Krishna everything that's happening in his mind, everything that's happening in his whole persona. And so now we will see the shattering of Arjuna. The other aspect or the other point of this also, which Gurudev brings out very nicely in his commentary, sometimes we tend to glorify our weaknesses, and this is what Arjuna does also. He feels like, oh, I shouldn't fight, it's not good to fight, making himself appear like he's a saint, but actually he's afraid. So sometimes whatever we may seem to be doing something, and we know inside that we're afraid that it's wrong, but we glorify it and we say it's compassion, we say it's saintliness, we say it's being caring, being giving. And so in the next verses after Arjuna breaks down, that's what we also see. He tends to glorify his weaknesses, justify them by saying that it's the right thing to do. But this, if you remember, we talked about in Mahabharata, misplaced values. That's a very, very subtle topic. When we appear to do something right, but it's really, we're feeling wrong inside. How Duryodhana gave Karna, the king of Anga. He made Karna the king of Anga. It looks outside like what a generous thing, but really inside it's because he wants Karna on his side. So there are a lot of these misplaced or crooked values that we appear to do something good, but inside it's not. So we will see what exactly is in Arjuna's mind. And the most beautiful thing is, so many of us go through this also. So we will see what is in our mind. Let's see now his breakdown. Verse 28 and 29 we will read. Arjuna uvacha.
Arjuna uvacha.
Drishtvaimam swajanam Krishna.
Drishtvaimam swajanam Krishna.
Yuyutsum samupasthitam.
Yuyutsum samupasthitam.
Sidanti mama gatrani.
Sidanti mama gatrani.
Mukham cha parishushyati.
Mukham cha parishushyate.
Vepatuscha sharire me.
Vepatushcha sharire me.
Romaharshascha jayate.
Romaharshascha jayate.
Arjuna uvacha drishtvemam swajanam Krishna yuyutsum samupasthitam sidanti mama gatrani mukham cha parishushyati vepatuscha sharire me romaharshascha jayate. So Arjuna said, Drishtva imam swajanam yuyutsum samupasthitam. He says, Drishtva, having seen imam swajanam, these people, my people. So now you see, it has changed. Before he said, let me see, place me in the between two armies and let me see who I have to fight. Now he's saying, let me see my people. His vision completely now switches. And he says, having seen them, yuyutsum who are eager to fight, samupastitam, who are arrayed over here. Oh Krishna, another meaning of Krishna is the one who pulls. So Lord Krishna, please help me, please pull me. Having seen all of them here, Arjuna's breaking down. Sidanti mama gatrani means gatrani, my limbs. Sidanti, they're becoming weak. My limbs are failing me. Mukham cha parishushyati, my mouth is getting dried up. Vepatuscha sharire me, and in my body there's vepatu. Vepatu means trembling, and romaharsha. Romaharsha means goosebumps. Romaharshascha jayate. He says all of this is happening. So imagine all of us do this. You're about to approach somebody, you want to tell somebody, you want to give them your mind. You want to tell them all of the things. You're so angry and you want to do something and you want to tell them everything and you rehearse everything. And then you get in front of the person. Then what happens? Sidanti mama gatrani. We lose courage, isn't it? It happens to us. Or sometimes we're placed in we say, okay, we're going to do so well. We're going to do great. Everything's going to work out fine. And then we come into the situation, Sidanti mama gatrani. So like that, this is exactly what happened to Arjuna. If we see from the body, his body becomes weak. His lips, can he say anything? His lips are parched. They dry. And his body now, he can't even control it. So his body is weak, his lips are dry, but he can't even hide it. He can't even hide it because his body's trembling. He can't control it. In Roma Harsha, Roma means hair, Harsha means laughing. When your hair laughs, that's called those goosebumps or horripilation. Roma Harsha is coming. So he can't even hide it. And what's more, he says in verse 30, Gandivam sramsate hastat.
Gandivam sramsate hastat.
Vakchaiva paridahyate.
Vakchaiva paridahyate.
Nacha shaknomyavasthatum.
Nacha shaknomyavasthatum.
Brahmativa cha me manaha.
Brahmativa cha me manaha.
Gandivam sramsate hastat. Tvakchaiva paridahyate. Na shaknomyavasthatum. Brahmativam cha me manaha. So he says, his bow, his Gandiva. Arjuna is famed for his Gandiva bow. Sramsate hastat. From his hand, this bow slips. It just slips from his hand. Tvak chaiva paridahyate. And his skin is just burning. And he says, Nacha shaknomyavasthatum. He says, I can't even stand. And me manaha, my mind brahmativa, my mind is spinning. So Arjuna is completely broken down. So if we want to see, the symptoms of anxiety attack or panic attack, all those symptoms is exactly what Arjuna is feeling in his body, in his mind. He can't even stand. Imagine that warrior is completely shattered. So here in this verse, what we see is this Kripaya paraya vishtaha vishidan idam abravit. So here we see Vishada. In these verses, 28, the second line, 29 and 30, that Vishidam, that sorrow, we see how he is breaking down in sorrow because he's unable to deal. He's unable to deal with his kith and kin. He's unable to follow dharma because of the attachment to his kith and kin. He gets the lack of vision. His vision is all deluded. And because of that, he's broken down. He doesn't know what's happening. He's torn inside. He's torn inside. And just like any person who's torn inside, it's as though they need counseling, isn't it? Here, so all of the things that people are experiencing now, Arjuna experienced it thousands of years ago. Anxiety attack experienced, panic attack experienced. He needs a therapist experienced. He is in Lord Krishna's therapy office, right? In the first chapter, Lord Krishna doesn't say anything at all. Arjuna goes on and on and on and on. So this first chapter is like Arjuna in therapy, really. And we see what's in his mind. So this 28, 29, 30 is this Vishida, this sorrow. Now, from 31 to 47 is his delusion. It's his kripaya avishta. It's his misplaced compassion. It's his delusion that we see. So in these verses, we see shoka, 28 to 30, 31 to 47, we see moha. So let's begin to see where is his misplaced compassion? Where is his delusion kicking in? How is he thinking? And we'll be surprised that many of us will also think like this. So let us see what he says. Verse number 31. Nimittani cha pashyami.
Nimittani cha pashyami.
Viparitani keshava.
Viparitani keshava.
Na cha shreyonupashyami.
Na cha shreyonupashyami.
Hatva swajanamahave.
Hatva swajanamahave.
Nimittani cha pashyami. Viparitani keshava. Na cha shreyonupashyami. Hatva swajanamahave. So he tells Lord Krishna. So now it's all justifications. It's all justifications for one person not doing their dharma, not doing the right thing, not standing up for what is to be done. This is how the mind justifies. First he says, Viparitani nimittani means I see a verse. Viparitani, nimittani, omens. I see these bad omens. Pashyami, I see it. Keshava. And what else? Nacha shreyonupashyami. I don't see any good from this war. Hatva, having killed swajanam ahave, having killed my own people in this battle. So he says, Lord Krishna, look what's happening in the Mahabharata war. And there's actually a whole section on all the omens that happened in the Mahabharata war, that when it was the Kauravas, when they were getting ready, all these ferocious animals were roaring and everything. But when it was the Pandavas' Paksha, It was all really glorious omens that were coming. So perhaps he was saying, I'm seeing both sides, and I'm seeing adverse omens. I'm seeing things that are not very good, not very nice. Maybe we shouldn't do it today. Maybe we shouldn't fight this war. He says, I don't think we should do it. And this is also us. Sometimes we'll say, today they say there's some kind of astrological thing, maybe we shouldn't do this. Today, like the sun is not in the right place, or this planet's not in the right place, maybe we shouldn't do this. And we make all kinds of excuses for not doing what we have to do. And one of the Swamijis always jokes with us, and he says, it's not called horoscope, it's horoscope, because it's a horror. The best time to start anything or to do anything is when the mind is pure. It doesn't matter where the planets are. It doesn't matter what time it is. It doesn't matter whether it's auspicious or not, or whether we're wearing something auspicious or not. What matters is the purity of one's mind, because that mind is greater than everything put together. So if that's an excuse, he says, no. Lord Krishna says, stays quiet, but that's not a good enough excuse. Again, then he says, I don't see any good in killing my kith and kin. Again, he says they are mine, swajana, they're my people. I don't see any good. Why should I kill them? Again, it's not about what you and I see. It's about dharma. It's never about what we think, what we feel. The minute we get into this whole place, what I think, what I feel, what I should do, we lost out. We lost out. Great thinkers will always think, what is the field? What is to be done? And how do we go about it? Not like, I don't know what to do. What's in it for me? What should I do? I'm feeling this way and I'm scared. The minute we do that, we will fall. And that is definitely not Shreya. So he says, I don't see any good in killing my kith and kin, but this is like such an opposite statement, right? The minute you say my and you look from that perspective, you've lost the Shreya in it. You've lost that Shreya's aspect. So this is how Arjuna's delusion starts. Now we will see one more verse and let us see what he's saying. 32. Nakankshe vijayam Krishna.
Nakankshe vijayam Krishna.
Nacharajyam sukhani cha.
Nacharajyam sukhani cha.
Kim no rajyena govinda.
Kim no rajyena govinda.
Kim bhoger jivitena va.
Kim bhogai jivitena va.
Nakankshe vijayam Krishna. Nacharajyam sukhani cha. Kim no rajyena govinda. Kim bhoger jivitena va. He says, oh Lord Krishna, Nakankshe vijayam, I don't want victory. And rajyam, Nakankshe, I don't want any kingdom. And sukhani cha, I don't want any pleasures. And he says, what will we do, O Lord Krishna? Kim rajyena, by this kingdom, bhogehi, by these pleasures, jivitena, by this life, what will it be for us? What will it do for us? Again, he's trying to justify. He's saying that I don't want all of this, right? So again, this is a misplaced emotion. Misplaced emotion. I don't want any of this. I don't want any kingdom. I don't want any joy. I don't want any victory. But it's not about what you want. It's not about what you want, whether or not you want victory, whether or not you want the kingdom. It's not about what you want. It's about what's needed. It's about dharma. So you see, if we don't look carefully, one might think, oh, Arjuna is so humble. Arjuna is so humble because he's saying, oh, I don't want riches, I don't want wealth, I don't want anything. You know, he's really a vairagi, he doesn't want anything. But actually, that's extremely selfish. It's an extremely selfish thing, because in that position, when you're a warrior, you don't think about what you want. That word, I, it doesn't exist. For someone who is in a higher position, for someone who has to think of a nation, the word I doesn't exist. So if we don't look at all of this very carefully, we will think that Arjuna is saying the right things. But if we look from a deeper perspective, we understand that all it is a justification. It's all misplaced compassion. So this first chapter requires that kind of insight. Otherwise, I'm telling you, if you read the first chapter, you'll say Arjuna's right, correct, absolutely correct, absolutely correct. So today, we will stop with this verse. I will just summarize what we've done so we can look at the whole thing. We have seen now that it had moved from verse 14 to 25. We've seen the Kaurava Paksha. The Kaurava Paksha, the Pandava Paksha we have seen. Then in verses 26 to 28, we see how Arjuna's dilemma, his whole dilemma. He goes there very confident, and then when he sees, especially Bhishma and Drona, where Lord Krishna puts him, especially there, he breaks down. He breaks down because he's not able to perform. It gives him such an emotional connect that whatever was his dharma, he loses it. He loses sight of it. And we saw in verses 28, the second line to 30, how he broke down. Mentally, he's broken down. Physically, he's broken down. Uncontrollably, he's broken down. And he doesn't know what to do. He can't even stand anymore. And then we start seeing in verses 31 and 32, what is his misplaced compassion? What is his justification? What is his delusion? And all his delusions come from sort of wanting to portray that he doesn't want anything. But actually, it's not about him. So this is what Arjuna is feeling now.